Buenas tardes, buenas noches, buenos días a toda esa gente que está conectada con IQ Voleibol TV, a la neurona del voleibol. Hoy estamos de fiesta, hoy tenemos una entrevista que mucha gente estaba esperando y yo sé que mucha gente quería tener esta entrevista. Nos dieron la primicia a nosotros y nosotros, pues, ¿qué vamos a decir? No nos podemos quejar. Esta entrevista, ya ustedes saben por la descripción, vamos a tener aquí a Hudson Bates, assistant coach de The Ohio State University. Él va a estar hablando en inglés. Yo sé que él habla un poquito de español y él puede entender algo de español, pero vamos a estar hablando en inglés, así que esta entrevista va a ser full bilingual. Si usted no habla mucho inglés, vamos a tratar de hacerle, ¿verdad?, algunos subtítulos para que usted pueda entender, pero por el momento va a ser en inglés, así que usted disfrute de esto. Mucha información muy buena sobre reclutamiento, sobre el programa de Ohio State, que es uno de los programas top de todos los deportes. Así que usted conéctese aquí y disfrute de esta entrevista con mi amigo Hudson Bates. Welcome.
Hey, Dario. Thanks for having me, brother.
It's nice to have you here. We've been trying to schedule one of this for a couple of weeks, and now finally we have you here in IQ Volleyball TV. It's really nice to have you here. It was really nice to meet you in person a couple of weeks ago, maybe a month ago or something. So it's really nice to have you here. I know that this is going to be a really good interview, and then people in Puerto Rico that might not remember you could
probably not many of them
could I think people in Adjuntas and in Adjuntas in San Sebastián might remember you.
Yeah, they might wish they don't remember me. Had a couple of rough seasons, but I love being down there, and I love getting down to Puerto Rico as often as I can. So yeah, it was great meeting you too, and I'm glad that I finally have a weekend off so we can do this, man. It's been a grind. I think this is my first weekend off in about 2 months. So glad to be here.
It's preseason, so you've been working really hard with recruiting, and we're going to be speaking about that too, and obviously the preparation for this year, for this season. So first of all, happy holidays. I know that you've been in a little bit of cold. How's weather right now in Ohio?
We got some snow flurries coming down. We haven't had a big snow yet, but this coming weekend, we're supposed to get a few inches. So it's turning cold.
All right. I can say the same thing about here. It's probably like 80 degrees. So
yeah, that's why I love coming to Puerto Rico and Florida. And last weekend I was in California, so it's nice to recruit in warm places.
That's good. Well, anyways, let's get started. First, we want to know about your history. What's your story? How do you got into volleyball? When do you took your first steps into a volleyball court?
Yeah, I'll try and keep it brief because, as you can imagine, it's a long history. Every year it gets longer. But I got into volleyball because I had an older sister that played, and she dragged me out to a clinic when I was in the 8th grade. I won the best server at that clinic because I could hit each zone on the court with my awesome overhand standing float serve. And after that, I was hooked. I stopped playing basketball year-round. I stopped playing baseball and just committed to volleyball. By the time I was a sophomore, started really taking it serious. My parents were kind of funny. They told me that if I wanted to play travel, I had to pay for it myself. So I got a really good construction job my junior year, and saved up $3,000 and started playing for Richmond Volleyball Club my junior year. And so I was kind of a late bloomer. When I was a sophomore in high school, I was 5'5". And when I was a junior, I was 6'3". So I grew a lot that summer.
Sure.
And I was terrible.
It didn't happen to me. It didn't happen
Not
to
yet.
me.
You're still waiting. your growth spurt's coming. Just wait. But yeah, I was terrible at volleyball because I grew so fast and I had no idea how to control my limbs.
Sure.
But then my
coordination
senior year,
and things.
Yeah, exactly. My senior year, I started to figure it out, And so I actually verbally committed to George Mason my senior year. And then I had a really good junior nationals tournament, and I was going to walk on for Mason, so I hadn't signed anything. And so I had all these college coaches, come up and talk to me after junior nationals, and I ended up actually switching and going to Long Beach. And I had a great freshman year there. I learned a lot. It was probably the best development of my volleyball career. But I had started dating my high school sweetheart when we were juniors in high school, and she had gone to Mason, and it was just
she was working for as a recruit for George Mason.
She was a great recruiter for that program. But I just felt in my heart that Mason was the better place for me. Yeah, just the right culture, and I knew some of the guys on the team, and I knew I could help them. And for me, that was a big deal. I wanted to go somewhere that I was going to have a big impact on the program. And we had some really good years while I was there. And fast forward to 4 years later, I get to start training with the national team, and I get to go down to Puerto Rico and play for Adjunta and San Sebastian, and I loved playing down there. And then I went overseas and played in Qatar, and that was really cool. It was really cool to kind of see Qatar back on the map with FIFA World Cup.
Mm-hmm.
And it was really interesting because one of the documents that I was watching about all the things and the troubles that are going on over there, they were actually filming it the year that I was there playing.
Nice.
So it was really interesting.
You were part of that history too.
Yeah, a little bit. I observed it. And then
how would you say? Yeah, sure. How would you say it was your recruiting back then compared to what we have now?
Yeah, recruiting back then was sparse. I remember as a junior and senior in high school, I think that the only time we saw coaches was at junior nationals. And there's a good chance that maybe they were at, the boys East Coast, and I just didn't know it. But it was very rare to see coaches at those qualifier tournaments, unless it was junior nationals back then. Totally different now. And back then, I think a lot of programs had a head coach, but not a lot of programs had an assistant. And I don't know of many back then that had a second assistant. But that's kind of the norm now. So you can have 3 people in different spots every weekend if you need to.
Yes. What can you say about your process as a NCAA player? How did you develop during those 4 years?
Oh, right. Yeah. So, my process was different because of the whole transfer. But I think, playing that year at Long Beach was really huge for my confidence. I learned that I could play with the best of them and compete really well at the highest level. And that just bolstered my confidence playing for Mason. And Mason, we had a really, really good team pretty much every year I was there. Unfortunately, Penn State also had a really, really good team with about 3 Olympians on it at the same time. So they always beat us in conference finals.
That was around what years do you play?
Like 2006 to 2008.
All right, so you play against and then Edgardo Goas was also there, right?
Exactly.
Goas and Dennis and the libero of Penn State.
Del Valle was one of the most annoying but best liberos I ever played against, because he would be talking about the play before it happened, and he would he would know it, like telling the future.
Actually, one of our sponsors right now, it's Rolling Ping. It's one of that's like a beach wear, streetwear or something related to beach and boats and everything. Oh, and Edgardo Goas is one of the investors.
Oh wow! Wow, that's great. So he's
one of the investors.
Well,
he's one of the investors of that brand, and now they're one of our sponsors. So thank you to Rolling Ping also this sponsoring us. So you had those type of years. What do you say? What's the most memorable memory that you have from those 4 years that you played?
There's a lot of matches that I remember, just 5-setters that were really clutch, and we ended up winning, and those are always going to be memorable. But honestly, just some of the times with the teammates, whether it was at Long Beach or whether it was at Mason, weekends with those guys and road trips, those are the most fond memories that I had. because that was one thing that I really realized when I started playing pro, was that I really enjoyed the team aspect of the game. I enjoyed the culture. I enjoyed the camaraderie. And then when I turned pro, it was, what are your stats? What can you do for me? What's this individual about?
Sure.
So
like
that's why
the focus changes.
Exactly. Yeah. And so that's why I was really passionate about getting into coaching, because I knew that I could help young men and establish some culture that would help them develop.
Sure. Would you say that your transition to professional volleyball was a little bit rough regarding to that?
Yeah, I think that if the timing was rough, because for me as an outside hitter, when I got down to Puerto Rico was the first time that I played with that Mikasa. And it was right when they changed the Mikasa from like the normal panels to the spiral. So I was a terrible passer my first couple of years of playing pro. And when I was in college, I was like, me and my libero passed half the court. So I was a good passer in college. And so that was a really tough adjustment. But then I think just the solitude of playing pro was tough. But like places like Junta and San Sebastian were awesome, because the community and the town were so like loving and nice. Even though I barely spoke any Spanish, they were really welcoming and awesome people.
I know you've been practicing your Spanish, right? So now you can.
Un poquito, sí, señor.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
Yeah, I have a little bit of a background in Portuguese. I was born in Portugal. My father was a missionary over in Portugal. So I grew up and I was fluent in Portuguese until about 7, when we moved back to the States, and I forgot all of it. So I picked up Spanish rather quickly.
Sure. Some wordings that are no, I can't understand. So it's not that bad. And if you can't understand my English, it means we're kind of in the same place.
No, yours is way better. Yours is way better than my Puerto Rican.
What can you tell me about your experience during you were here for 2 years playing pro in Puerto Rico?
Yeah, it was great. I think I mentioned this to you when we were talking down at the tournament a few weeks ago. But my first year with that Junta, we had a really, really good team. I mean, it was Ivan Contreras, Rene Esteves, Jose Quinones. Like, we had a stacked team, but the problem was they all lived in San Juan and we never practiced.
Yeah, so traveling, it was 2 hours and a half from San Juan to Juntas.
Yeah, which for me as a young pro, it was great. We practiced maybe once a week, and then we'd have a match the next day, and maybe 2 or 3 matches in the week. And it was really a great experience. It was a lot of competitive volleyball right off the bat. And the culture down there was awesome.
Because you were here when we had players from international players playing here.
Yeah, each team was allowed 2 refuerzos, and there was guys there. It
was Clayton Stanley, right? Clayton Stanley we had in Carolina, and Jorge Elgueta also.
Yeah,
there's a couple of good players
was down there while I was.
Andy Hine, I don't know if it was around that time.
Yeah, he was. He was with Naranjito. David McKenzie was down there. That was really the first time that David McKenzie and I met, and we ended up playing on the AVP together for a few years, a long time after that. But yeah, Puerto Rico was amazing. Like, honestly, that's why one of the things that I like recruiting that area and that wonderful place, because it's just in the culture. Volleyball is a popular and passionate sport down there, and it's just awesome to get guys from that area.
I'm laughing because I remember one of the talks that we had around in the tournament about how passionate coaches could be.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's a different level on the sidelines for some of them. It's drama.
We were recently talking with Francisco Comas from McKendree, the libero. I don't know if you met him. So Francisco was speaking because Francisco is Puerto Rican. He was born here and he grew up here until he was like 12, and then he moved to Chicago. And then his last part of becoming a volleyball player, it was in the States. So he was kind of used to that type of the passive coaches that he had in the States. And once he came here to play for the national team for I think it was under 21, it was like why are these people screaming at me all the time?
Yeah, that was the best thing about not knowing all the Spanish words, because the coaches would be fired up on the sideline, and I have no idea what they're talking about. I don't know if they're talking to me or not. They probably were.
That's a good part of not knowing what they're screaming about.
Yeah. The
So
issue with that though, with that team in a junta, was our libero didn't speak any English, so me and him passing together was again not a great situation. But
yeah,
he was
sure.
good. He was really good.
What was his name? Do you remember?
I think it was Paulo. He was late 30. He was older than I am now. He was maybe 40 years old. But he was a legend.
We here in the professional league, we have players like I don't know if you remember Feñito Rodriguez.
Yeah.
He played until he was like I think 40 or 42 or something.
Yeah, I think,
and he was a middle blocker.
Right. I think when I played down there, maybe he had taken a year or two off, but he played one of the seasons I was down there, and everybody was like, yeah, he was, he's 43 years old right now. Man,
yeah, he was.
It's awesome.
And still playing like he was 20. So
yeah,
it was very good. So you spoke a little bit about your transition into coaching. How was that transition, and what made you choose coaching instead of keep on playing professional?
Yeah, like it all comes back to the most important person in my life, and that's the missus, the boss. She was
the best recruiter, the best recruiter that your nation has had.
Yeah, she was ready to settle down and tired of me being overseas for months at a time, and I was tired of it too. And so I started looking around and considering opportunities, and there was one really good opportunity of a new Division III program starting, and I knew that I wanted to be a head coach someday, so I wanted to jump in and get trial by fire. So that's what I did, and they were I don't know if it was a smart, good, or bad decision, but they hired me, so I did the best I could there. And it was a great experience, because I always tell people this: if you're ever interested in getting into coaching, start at the Division III level, because you have to do everything. You have to be good at recruiting, organizing, ordering jerseys, every single aspect of a program. It's all you, and you're the only one that really can get it done and has responsibility for it. So I even nowadays, when I have we have 4 or 5 people on our staff, I still feel spoiled. And I remember those days working at Division III and how hard you have to grind and how good those coaches are at that level.
Sure. Kind of makes me think about this Netflix series, Last Chance U. They're doing everything. Yeah. They had football first, and then now they have basketball.
Yeah, I remember watching I watched both of them. I like the basketball one a lot, and that guy's a great example. It's like you would never think that a JUCO coach is that passionate and that good at what he does, but that's the thing, man. It's like coaching isn't one of those professions where the best people are at the top. I mean, yes, some of the best people are at the top, but some of the best people are at the lowest levels, because that's the type of life that they want.
They might do more with less resources.
Exactly.
And that's some of the things that obviously we want to do also with this podcast, is to showcase people that are doing a lot with not a lot of resources.
Yeah.
Developing players, getting players to have to have some Division Ones come here to see them, even though they don't have as many resources as other clubs or schools in the States. So that's part of our goal too with the podcast.
Yeah, that's huge.
So you mentioned you started in Division III. How did you got into the Ohio State University, the Buckeyes?
Yeah, so Division III, we got that program started. Thankfully, talked to some very good players into playing for me, and they had some great seasons. They worked their tails off. I didn't know really what to expect out of them or what to demand out of them, so I just demanded the most, and they responded incredibly, and we did really well. By the time we were in our 4th season, we were top 10 nationally ranked and won our conference and all that good stuff. And then my best friend from high school, actually, he played at Penn State, and he was promoted to head coach at University of Virginia on the
Nice.
women's side. So that was kind of my foot in the door to start working at the Power 5 level. And he was amazing, just like a great resource for me to learn from. He started off coaching at Northwestern, and he was their data analytic guy as an assistant coach. So he knew data volley, he knew the numbers in and out, and that was an aspect of the game that I just didn't really know much about before then. So I learned a lot about kind of being a head coach is a lot of administrative work, a lot of numbers, a lot of managing people, and not so much coaching on the court. So that was a great experience for me to learn with him, and it was awesome to just connect with him and spend those couple of years. And because of my resume, since I had head coaching experience and I had Power 5 experience, then when Coach Birch was promoted to head coach here at Ohio State, the administrators were like, okay, this guy's resume fits the bill of what we need, and you can bring him in as your associate head coach. And it's been great ever since.
Nice, nice. Do you think that having that experience also like as a pro player help you to kind of fit into the Ohio State University? Because I know that Ohio State has a very high standard for their athletes and also coaching staff.
I think it does. I think it helps just kind of balance out the staff, because the three of us on staff are all very good in different aspects. And we all have, we all came up through the game, but in very different ways. Like Birch has been pretty much a coach since the time that we were in college. Even though he's like 2 years younger than me, he's been coaching for way longer than I have. And then our other assistant on staff, Coach Maloney, he graduated. We actually played together at Mason. He graduated from Mason, and he's got into the coaching world right away. So he's been coaching longer than me. So I bring a little bit more of the playing experience to the staff. Both of those guys have great analytic backgrounds and sidelines experience that I don't have. So it's just more of a balancing act, I think, what Birch was looking for.
Good. How would you describe, speaking about that, how would you describe the program? What are some things that you guys as a program focus on regarding to development and players that you recruit?
We've been focused a lot since we got here just on making sure that the level of commitment is to the standard of winning national championships. And it's been tough because we won those championships back in 16, 17. And sometimes the attitude is that you get here and you're going to be good automatically. And a lot of people don't realize culture is one of those things you have to keep rebuilding every single year, because it's always a new group. And you have to keep teaching them, the level of commitment has to be just as much for the lowest guy on the totem pole as well as the highest guy on the totem pole. So if there's one guy that's going to be more committed than the other, like we got to try and make sure that everybody's committed to the same level. But that's one of what else we've been working on. I think the thing that we really look for in our recruits is character.
Sure.
It's easy to tell who can be good at the game, but the little things go a long way for us. And most coaches are looking for, what's this kid's character off the court? What's he doing with his social media? What's he doing with the coaches that are working with him? How does he interact with his parents? What kind of culture does their household have? All those things are really important. And one of the things that we actually look for and that we like hearing from recruits is if their parents played some type of sport back in the day, back when they were younger. So that goes a long way too.
That kind of teaches the culture about responsibility, being committed, and hard work also. That's kind of one of those special, those things that you look for in an athlete. It's like, maybe I have 2 6'5" that can hit the ball, I don't know, 40 inches or jump 40 inches. But if one shows and portrays that he's responsible, he's respectful, he likes to be coached, so that gives him an edge over the other one.
Yeah, coachability is key. Every time I do clinics all over the country, and the first thing I say is, it doesn't matter how good you are right now, it matters how good you are at the end of this 2-hour clinic. How coachable can you be? How good of a learner are you? Because that's really that's the biggest thing for us. Like you said, those two guys can be very even as high school seniors, but is one going to be a little bit more receptive to coaching? Is one going to work a little bit harder than the other one? We have to ask the questions and figure out which one is going to eventually take off and be the more successful athlete in the long run. And athletic parents tend to teach those lessons when they're younger. They don't even think about it, but they teach kids. They teach kids that you got to do it on your own. You can't wait for someone else to make you great. If you want to be great, you got to go out and you got to practice by yourself and do all the little things by yourself.
Just like your family did to you. If you want to play travel, you've got to work. You got to earn it.
Yeah.
So that's a good thing. One quick question. I think this is one that might, I don't know. It always leaves me thinking about it. When you're recruiting, is it always, or is it really height over talent? Like, are you guys, or are you as a recruiter thinking about, well, I'd rather have someone taller with less talent or less knowledge about the game, or someone undersized but with a really good or unique talent?
There's a little bit of a balancing act in that. You want to have the guys on your roster that are lockdown blue chips that are going to be impactful. And then you also want to have a couple guys in the wings that maybe they're not there yet, but they have the potential to have a higher ceiling than maybe those impactful guys that you're banking on. And it also depends on position. Obviously, the height and the contact is different for every position. And sometimes, especially now, as fast as the game is, when I was playing, everybody was looking for 6'8" or above middles because they just wanted to be able to clog up the middle of the court. But now, as fast as the game is, like, we're okay taking a 6'5", a 6'6" middle if he's really fast laterally and can close pin to pin. So it's a balancing act. I think the biggest thing that we look for in recruiting is consistency. Like, we get burned all the time on a kid that sends us a highlight tape and like, man, this kid looks really good. And the highlight reel is from like 5 different tournaments and 17 different games. And then we go and watch him and he has like 1 or 2 of those highlight swings or digs or something in the match that we watch. Like, okay, so he's a highlight kid. He's not really a consistent high level player. And so that's the thing that we always tell recruits is, we need you to be consistently good. We don't need you to be exceptionally great every now and then.
Yes. And also something that when I was coaching, I was always trying to remember this to the kids is, I know that you can do highlight plays, but if you only do one highlight play and then all the other ones are below average plays, then it doesn't matter because I prefer you to have really good plays more consistently than having just one highlight play and then anything else. So
and to kind of speak to that fact is, so like I said, Coach Birch, our head coach, he knows the numbers and he knows the game inside and out. And really the only metric that he keeps track of during matches is plus minus for each of the guys on the court. If you're gonna bounce 7 balls in front of the 10-foot line, but you have 7 hitting errors and 3 service errors, and you're shanking 5 out of the 12 serves that you're getting served, you're like at a -6, and you're not helping the team at that point.
Yes, I can't have you on court.
Right, exactly.
I might have you on the team, but I can't have you on court.
Yeah. Well, and this is something that I noticed when I was down there at that tournament is, and maybe you can answer this question for me, but when I was watching the middle schoolers play, those kids are disciplined and those rallies are long, and it's like really, really good volleyball at a consistent level. And those kids are like stopped on defense and they're doing what their coaches tell them to. And then I watch like the varsity teams, and there's almost no discipline out there. So what happens in that time frame?
I'm going to give you my hypothesis. So what I think about that is that usually players in the middle school or just 9th, 10th grade, usually what they do is that they follow instructions. And so what we're talking about, just 9th and 10th grade players, usually they follow more instructions. And
I was talking about the 7th and 8th graders. Those kids were really fun to watch. Yeah.
And if you see during those levels, 7th, 8th grade, we don't have a lot of teams.
Hmm. Oh, right.
So good players might be on the
They're
same
starting early.
teams.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Um, but regarding to varsity, then we have like a more scarce, like people are in different teams, and then we might have 2 or 3 good players in a team, but then the other ones are just like basketball players or something that
That
are
makes sense.
just try to. But what I think we should get better at those, as you mentioned, we have to get better in those varsity and 17, 18 teams. Regarding the club, right now we might have 2 or 3 good, balanced, competitive teams.
Hmm.
But back in the days when I used to play, we had 4, 5, 6 competitive teams.
Right.
So we go to the junior nationals and we kind of we got into the medals almost every year. Right now, it's not as frequent as it was. I don't know, 10 years ago.
Right. Yeah. The younger age groups seem to do better. I remember this. This is probably my first exposure to Puerto Rican volleyball was
Hmm.
I think my junior year of
Hmm.
junior nationals,
Hmm.
and Toramar had I can't remember his first name. His last name was Diaz. He ended up playing basketball at Miami.
Guillermo.
Ooh, man, that was the first Puerto Rican that I really watched play, and he was so impressive.
He played for the Clippers. I think
Yeah.
he played in the NBA for the Clippers, and he played. I don't know. I think he had 2 teams. I think it was Minnesota, the other team. I can't remember, but he still plays basketball in Puerto Rico in the pro
Well,
league.
he made a good choice. He made a good living playing basketball. Much better choice than sticking with
Yeah,
volleyball.
yeah.
But he was so impressive as a high school player. He's like our Chase Budinger, who played in the
Yeah.
NBA and now he's on the AVP.
I kind of I remember Guillermo. I think I was probably around 5th or 6th grade when he was a senior. But during his senior year, we had in Puerto Rico the high school world championship or something like that. So there was the best high school teams from all over the world came to Puerto Rico to play.
Wow.
And his team, and also I don't know if you know Juan Figueroa.
Oh yeah.
He's the coach for Cal State LA.
Yeah.
So Juanchi and Guillermo were the 2 outsides of that team,
Pretty good.
and they got the first place in that world championship as a high school team, the
Oh, that's
BMA.
sweet.
That was Bayamon Militari.
Hmm.
I think it was around 2003, 2004, maybe.
Yeah. That 2003 was my high school senior year. So yeah, it's probably around
But
then.
that was probably 2003. I remember seeing the teams from Africa, from China, from Japan
Cool.
coming to Puerto Rico just to play against Guillermo and Juanchi. And in the female side, I went to San Francisco, and we had Karina Ocasio. I don't know if you remember her. She also
No.
plays. But she plays. Still, I think her last tournament was around 4 months with the national team. But we had Karina and a really good team that also made it to the medals, but they got a bronze medal on that world championship. So I was in middle school while seeing those games being practiced. Teams were practicing in my high school. So during recess, I had a chance to see like teams from Africa, from Spain, from everything practicing in my high school. That was a great experience that I think pushed me to keep on going.
Right.
Like I wanted to be like them. I wanted to be in that type of scenery too.
Yeah, it's just amazing the again, like the culture and the opportunities that you guys have in Puerto Rico is just unique because obviously there's probably never been anything done like that in the US, and even if there was, nobody would know about it, you know. But like going to that tournament last month down there, it was like a high school tournament, and there was hundreds, 1,000 or so, to maybe 2,000 people that were packed in that gym, and it's just.
What can you tell me about the horns?
I don't know who's selling those, but that's what I want to invest in. I have an investment opportunity. If you are selling those horns, I want a piece of the pie.
Those people are probably millionaires right now. They probably sell, I don't know, 500, 600 horns in a closed gym.
Yeah, next time I come down there to recruit, I'm just gonna put a bunch of those in the trunk of my rental car and drive around and sell them for $2.
But you're gonna get a couple of thousand probably.
I'm always looking for a side hustle, so that might be it.
Well, speaking a little bit about that tournament, what can you say about Puerto Rican volleyball and what you're seeing right now in the 16, 17, 18 under players that you've seen from Puerto Rico?
Yeah, it's always interesting because like I said before, the skill level is there and it's there early. It's the discipline and the work ethic. I mean, I remember I can't say, and I can't remember which kid this was, but I had a call with a guy from Puerto Rico a few years back, and we were having a conversation. It was going okay, but I kept hearing, controller clicking. And I was like, hey, man, are you playing Xbox right now? He's like, yeah, I'm playing 2K. And that was the last time that I talked to him.
That will probably be my last time too. It's like if you can focus on something this special or something this important, then this might not be for you.
Exactly, and it's not for everyone, and that's what's great about it, And not everybody wants to go to school in the States, and not everybody wants to have that discipline, and it's honestly like the talent is there, the skill is there, and it's just the guys that put in the work, or those are the guys that find themselves with the opportunities. And
what would you say is one thing that Puerto Rican coaches should focus on regarding to their development of players? What do you think is something that they should focus?
Yeah, it's not just Puerto Ricans, but I think all junior level players, the serving is, and maybe they are, but I go to these tournaments all the time and I see kids that are, whether it's a float serve or whether it's a jump serve, you can tell they're just trying to put it in the court. They're not really being mindful of, how do I get this team out of system? Maybe my serve isn't good enough to get an ace right now, but what can I do to manipulate their offense to make it hard for them to set who they want to set? Whether it's serving short, mixing up depths, changing speeds, tossing a hybrid or whatever it is. But I do think that you can see it on the international level. The biggest discrepancy between the great teams and the good teams is the ones that are able to serve at a high level, and they have a couple of players that have a different type of serve on their team. So that's for sure. That's the thing I tell juniors coaches all the time is just spend a lot more time on your serve and teach kids how to serve on their own.
Mm-hmm. And then like kind of follow it. When I was coaching, one of the things that I like to do is why are you serving to that place? Like, what's the IQ? What's your what are your thought process regarding to what are you doing? If you're trying to do something with your serve, then that's okay. Because if you can rationalize about that and explain it to me, then it works, right? But if you are just trying to pass the ball to the other side, then it doesn't necessarily serve the process that we're trying to reach.
Yeah, exactly. And to that point, I was always the type of coach that wanted to make players not need me, make them autonomous. And so what you're talking about is exactly the way to get there. Instead of what I see most of the time is the coaches is holding up a serving zone and then telling the kid where to serve the ball instead of teaching them, like, hey, we should serve this area because, and then asking questions like you're talking about, having a dialogue and teaching them to think for themselves.
And so regarding to Puerto Rican players, how do you think that they can enhance their chances to play in the NCAA or the collegiate level?
Depends on position. I think the most probably transferable position from Puerto Rico to the States is probably the libero position. And for those guys, it's all about exposure and film because that's the hardest position to evaluate. Now, you can go to a tournament and watch a libero for 3 matches, and he gets served like 3 balls. He gets an opportunity to dig maybe 10 balls, and it's just hard to evaluate that position. So, and that's typically a position that gets recruited a little bit later. So I would just encourage libero players to get a lot of film going early and sending that film out to coaches early, like end of sophomore year, early junior year. And then, setter position. That's one of the things that I love watching Puerto Rican setters, because you guys do a great job of just training setters how to have good fast hands and location and manage an offense and think about, why am I setting this guy, and who's the player I need to set in the clutch. So that position transfers well. And then I think just like the toughest position to transfer is opposites and outsides, mostly just because of contact point. Like your question earlier about, like, do we look for a player that's tall or has potential? We don't really necessarily have like a certain metric, but you have to be able to score at a really good level when the pass is bad. You have to be a good out of system attacker as an outside or an opposite, because when we can't get the ball to the bick, when we can't set the quick, everyone knows the ball's coming to you, and you're hitting against a triple block. If you're hitting against a triple block and the ball's clearing the net by like 6 or 7 inches, you're not going to score very much. But if you can get the ball to clear the net by 15, 16 inches, okay, you got a shot. And whether that means you're 6 feet tall and you have a 45-inch vertical, or you're 6'6" and have a 32-inch vertical, that's helpful. But at the end of the day, you have to be able to hit the ball at its highest point with a lot of pace.
That's good. That's good. So one of the things that I was mentioning to Francisco last week when we were doing that interview was, I was asking him about playing defense, because I used to play libero, and I had the chance to play in California when I was back there, for the NBA, for the Matadors. I'm a former Matador. And it was very easy. It was very easy for me to play defense with the middles. In Puerto Rico, it's way harder to play defense. So I think that also helps our transferring position, like our liberos, to transferring from high school to NCAA, just because it's so hard to play defense. Regarding to what we were talking earlier about, being disciplined in the net, and having that type of coordination, it's very difficult for liberos to play in here. And then when they go out there and they see, like, hey, I have 2 6'8" middle blockers jumping out there, it's so easy because I just have to cover my zone and that's it.
Yeah, and that feeds into the discipline. If you have a disciplined block in front of you, it's easy to sit in the pocket and play disciplined defense. But when you have a block in front of you that is guessing and then wrong and then leaving huge seams and reaching all over the place, like, you don't know where to set up in the pocket. So, yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
That's one of the things that I will always mention whenever we're talking about some of the differences. It's just mainly because I saw it, because I experienced it. Right. So there's probably a lot of other things about, I don't know, maybe hitting or something that I don't know, because I don't used to hit. But regarding to defense, I always speak about that discipline that we see in the blocking, especially when we play with international players, and regarding to the difference regarding to our middle blockers in Puerto Rico.
Yeah, so, I would say that's a good, like, that's probably the 2 skills of the game that I would say have maybe the biggest ground to make up in Puerto Rico is the serving and the blocking, and that's just the first couple of stages of defense, the serve and block.
Nice. So just closing up, because we don't have a lot of time, and I know you have some kids snapping, and you might need to run out and get them some food. How do you see long-term men's volleyball programs at the collegiate level?
That's a good question. It's really exciting right now, with microphone's falling out.
No worries.
So that's a good question. With USC and UCLA joining the Big Ten, it's kind of exciting to, in a couple of years, it's kind of exciting to think about, is it possible for Big Ten to have a men's volleyball conference, like to actually sanction it as a varsity sport for the conference? There's a lot of things that would have to happen to make it possible. And there's a chance, but it's a long shot. But the other good thing is, all the work that those groups are doing to start new teams for the HBCUs and for other Division Ones across the country. For the men's volleyball, there's growth, and 10 years ago there wasn't a lot of growth.
Mm-hmm.
So the fact that that's happening is huge, and not only for Division One, but when I started that Division III program, I think it was maybe 8 years ago now. We were like one of 5 teams that were starting that year, and there hadn't been a lot of teams starting before that. And I think the last time I looked, back then, I think we were like team 98 or 99 that started, and I think now there's like 140 Division III teams.
Mm-hmm.
So the growth at that level is just huge too. And it's just awesome to see some growth. And then it's also exciting. Like there's this group that's purchasing juniors clubs all across the country, and they have a plan to start a women's pro league. And then the rumor is that they're going to try and start a men's pro league as long as the women's pro league is successful.
I think that would also help for the male side of the sport, because we usually see a lot of females make it, and especially during this, I think that's 2 or 3 years, we've seen more than 50 Puerto Ricans playing in Division One in the female side.
Right.
But on the male side, we only have maybe 6 to 8 males that make it to NCAA or Division One. So it's for us. It's a challenge also, because in Puerto Rico we also have the same type of challenges that you guys face in the States. We don't have as many teams in divisions. For example, 6 teams. I think last year we had only like 5 teams.
Oh wow!
And so all year long they were playing against those same 5 teams, and then they had to travel to just compete against other teams. Fortunately, they were pretty good, but we're just developing those pretty good teams, and then what happens with all the rest? What happens with every other player? Because we don't only need players for Division One, we also need players for our universities here in Puerto Rico, and just to have sufficient talent in our pro league, and then also have talent for our programs, for our national programs.
Yeah, and that's kind of what makes it hard sometimes to get players out of Puerto Rico, is you have such a good college system down there. I mean, when I was at Mason, we played against Mayaguez almost every season, and those guys were great. It was a good team. So there's a lot of things that are contributing to the factor of maybe not so many guys playing in the States, but
plus some of the programs here that also are not they don't have all the rules that NCAA has, so players might be able to play for their college in here and then also play pro in the pro league. So that helps them obviously financially.
Yeah, that was definitely the case for a couple of the better players when I was at San Sebastian. They were in the college system at the same time.
Well, Hudson, it was really nice to have you here. What do you think? How do you feel?
Oh, I feel good. I didn't mumble through as many things as normal. I feel like I'm getting a little better at these things. So thanks for giving me the shot and the practice. I love it.
It was really nice to have you here. It's for us an honor to have not only you, because obviously we met a couple of months ago or a month ago, but also to have representation about the Division One, having representation about a great program in Ohio State University. So
I mean, we have almost 15 Puerto Rican alumni. We have some great Puerto Ricans that came through the program, but for some reason, the last decade or so, we just haven't locked any in. So we're doing the best we can to lock in.
I think that you're trying to lock in on some, right?
We're always trying to lock in on some. And like you said, NCAA rules, don't let me talk about that.
Sure. No, it's so good. It's so good. because obviously we know that as far as you came here, you might be looking for someone. So that's
Absolutely.
good. That's good. So hopefully we'll see you again. Next time you'll be in Puerto Rico, food's on me. And
Sweet.
thanks for being
Medalla.
here with us. Yeah, the medalla.
Medalla's on you.
That's what you're looking for.
Medalla, that's it. And
that's what you remember from my juntas, right?
Don Q. Yeah,
Well, it was really nice having you here. I hope that we can have you here soon enough and have you multiple times, and hopefully we can still contribute to your guys' program, our kids in Puerto Rico, and hopefully we can see a couple of more Puerto Ricans in the dressed as Buckeye for the next couple of years.
Baby. Get them in that scarlet and gray. All right, yeah, nice. Dario, thank you so much. It was a blast.
Really nice having you. Merry Christmas, happy holidays, and I hope to see you soon.
Thank you. You too.
Gracias, mi gente. Gracias por conectarse. Nos vemos.